Are you all bought into DORA metrics? Are you excited about this idea of measuring your teams and improving things, but you're hitting a roadblock? And that is, how do you take this excitement that you have for DORA metrics and spread that to other teams? We see this again and again. My company, Sleuth, we develop a tracker that helps you track and improve your DORA metrics. And so we talk to hundreds of companies well, I wouldn't say every day, but we have and generally talk to many companies. And this is a common thing we hear. We hear, oh, I've read the Accelerate book. I've seen the State of DevOps report. I'm excited about this idea of looking at metrics that can help me get better as my team. But how do I help other people see that same excitement? How do I share? How do I show the value of DORA metrics to other people, to managers, to developers, to the teams themselves? How do you share this excitement? If that is you, if you are in that very similar situation, then this is the show for you. Because here on Sleuth TV Live, Season 2, we are going to be talking about it in this episode of how to take DORA metrics and try to spread that in your teams to get the maximum benefit of tracking and improving these things. And we're not just going to talk about it. This is what I'm really excited about. So in this show, what we're going to do today is we're going to chat, get to know each other, hopefully find out where you are, what's going on. Then we're going to look at some cool things that are happening in Sleuthland. So we have a newsletter that goes out every month. And I thought instead of just telling you what we're doing here in a tool that helps you track DORA metrics, I'd show you, because there's some stuff that we're really excited about. And then that last bit is we're going to focus on talking about how to improve your DORA metrics. Well, let's jump right into our second section, which we are going to be looking at what's been going on in Sleuth. So if you don't know already, Sleuth is a DORA metrics tracker who helps you track and improve your DORA metrics. The idea being here that people want to know how their engineering teams are doing, how they're performing, not just in speed, how their software delivery is performing not just in speed, but also in quality. Is this high speed that they're going at creating a bunch of incidences? Are the incidences taking a long time? DORA metrics gives you a great way to measure that and then use that information to make improvements to, again, kind of do more with less, so to speak. Anyway, Sleuth is a DORA metrics tracker, and we've been very busy on a couple things that I wanted to share with you that has happened in the last month, and not just tell you about, but actually show. So let's switch over to that. We are looking at the newsletter. So if you don't already have, we have a newsletter. If you're not already subscribed, we have a newsletter that comes out every month that kind of shares some of the new things that are going on with Sleuth. And so I thought it would be kind of interesting to not just have you read this and read some text about what's amazing, but actually see it in action. There's a couple things that I really wanted to highlight. In fact, one thing that's not even on here that I think is worth talking about. First, the global navigation. So switching from Sleuth, here's the thing. As Sleuth has evolved over time, and we've listened to customers say, we want this, we need this, this would be really helpful, we've added more and more features. Well, when you add features from a navigation standpoint, you tend to just start adding links all over the place, and then it becomes cluttered and hard to find things. And so we went through a rethinking of our navigation to make it easier to find stuff. For example, we have this new switcher up here where you can just type in whatever you're interested in, jump right there. You can even type in a team and go over to teams and find the team that you're interested in. Because that's what we want to do with DORA metrics. We find that it's not just useful to see DORA metrics by project, but by teams. And so you can kind of jump to that and find it. The other nice thing about the switcher is it better supports our large organizations. So we had some enterprises that were throwing in hundreds of different projects and teams and code deployments, and it was getting hard. The page was just scrolling and scrolling. So the team did an amazing job, I think, of taking that information, coming up with a design that works for smaller teams and larger teams, and this is the result. So you can now see, as I said, you can jump to your project metrics, your team metrics. But you can also see some of the higher level stuff, such as the organization at large. What is all the different deployments that are going on? What's the health of those deployments? I can look at trends that are happening. Again, these are all features that are already there. It's just they were kind of buried or hard to find. And so I think in this new navigation, it's a lot easier to find some of these features, such as seeing this high level view of trends, or if you want to compare your DORA metrics, you want to compare one team versus another. I want to see how the back-end team is doing through the front-end team, because nothing like encouraging that rivalry that naturally happens between front-end and back-end folks. But then you can also kind of go even bigger and say, well, how does that compare against a project as a whole? And so you can start to see, you know, for example, our frequency of this, and you can see how it breaks down. It looks like our front-end developers are actually deploying less a day, which is very interesting, given that traditionally they deploy a lot more than our back-end folks, but looks like our back-end folks have stepped it up. Anyways, these are features that already existed. It's just now they're a little bit easier to find, which is nice. So I'm happy about that one. The other thing that I want to talk about, and this actually isn't on the newsletter, but I think it's worth mentioning, is that we have this work in progress dashboard that not only have we started to hear from customers it's useful, we ourselves have started to find this a really useful daily use of Sleuth tool. So Sleuth can be really good for coming in once a week, once a month, just to see how the metrics are, kind of in a retrospective style. But what was missing is to see the problems before they became problems in the metrics. And that's where the work in progress. And this dashboard has been out there for a few months now. But what's happened in this last month is that we've been doing some improvements. In fact, here's something that's not even yet on the newsletter, and that is issue breakdowns. So you can not only see what work is happening all right now, and you can see how that compares to our norm. For example, we have some issues right now that are waiting to deploy, which is unique for us. The review time is getting a little bit worse. So you can see kind of the gray is the average and the red is this current time. So in this period that we're looking at of, I believe it's 2 weeks, you can see that our review time is getting a little bit longer. Is that a problem? Is that not? That's, you know, a whole other thing. But then you can see what risks are making up these numbers. So we have a PR, here we go, an upgrade to Python 3.10, which is something that our senior developer worked on, but then had to shelve because it was a very big project and we didn't have time to do it. And so that's kind of affecting our metrics, but it looks like he's picked it up lately. So maybe that is going to get shipped. Anyways, the idea is to see your risks, your things that are happening right now and how they're going to affect metrics before they affect metrics. But yeah, this issue breakdown is a kind of a cool one. So you can see of these things, we see most of our things are in review. We have a couple in progress and a couple in another state. That's kind of cool. So you can kind of see that information. We're trying to take this information that is in different places and bring it into one spot. So if you're trying to put on your detective hat, I was told that I need to avoid detective metaphors being a company named Sleuth, but I refuse. If you want to put on your Sherlock Holmes detective hat to try to figure out what's going on in your metrics and what's going on in your team right now and things that are potentially going to cause problems to your metrics, let's nip those things in the bud and use this dashboard. So I'm excited about that. There's also, I'll do one more thing. I'm not going to go through everything in the topic, but there's one more which is kind of a nice thing for people who are using Sleuth now, and that is you can now move a code deployment. So this is something where people might have set up a code deployment in one project and later they have one project, multiple code deployments, and they want to split that out into multiple projects or vice versa. They created a project per code deployment and they want to bring it all together. You now can do that within the UI before you just had to recreate things. So not a big thing, but it's like one of those small usability things that I think just makes it more friendly to use, and something again that we hear in support and our customer success calls again and again, which is, you know, now that we're using it, how can we're hitting these problems, and so we want to try to address those. So I guess I'll just throw in a plug there. If you are a user of Sleuth or been evaluating Sleuth and there's something that you've been missing, please let us know. Our roadmap is, I won't lie and say it's 100% dependent, but it's very much dependent on the user feedback, customer feedback, people that are using it in a day-to-day basis saying, if it only did this, my life would be so much better, or this is slowing me down or blocking me, can you help? We want to know that. And how do you do that is there is this thing which is completely hidden right now, but a little help button down at the bottom where you can click on that and message us, or you can always send us an email at support@sleuth.io. Oh, one more thing, I guess, while I lied. One more thing I want to talk about is we've been doing some cool interviews, exciting interviews with customers. We did one with Puma. We did another one with Article. So if you want, you can click on these directly, or you can go into Sleuth TV Live, and I'll show you how you get there. If you go to our home page, well, there is where it is, but let's go back to our home page. And there'll be a link up here to the library of TV. You can kind of click that and see all the different content we have to try to help teams adopt metrics and improve their teams. And then we do have a Sleuth TV Live where you can see all the past episodes. Well, Sleuth TV, and Sleuth TV Live is somewhere here. Probably should have tested this better. Why? Oh, there we go. Sleuth TV Live Season 1, where you can kind of see past episodes of what's happening. And this is going to be on there as well. In fact, actually, we probably should rename that to that link to Sleuth TV Live in general. Now we have multiple seasons, which is exciting. Anyways, speaking of exciting, now it is time for something which I am particularly excited about. I forgot to advance this. Well, here we go. How do you spread DORA metrics? So the question is this. You are using DORA metrics. You're finding a lot of value out of it. You're really excited to start measuring these things, but how do you spread that excitement to other people and other teams? Well, as I said, rather than tell you how you should, I want to give you some examples, some real world examples from people in my team on how we have used and shared DORA metrics, value that we've got out of it. So we are going to do something completely new on this channel, which is going to have live guests. We've tried to do it this way. We brought in people via Zoom. This is the first time we're going to do it live. And as history says, it's going to go perfectly the first time. So let me bounce it over to our new set and invite over Kate. Oh, there we go.
Come on in.
Yes, come on in. Oh, let me get back a little bit. Okay, so hopefully you can all still hear and see me.
Hello.
So we have Kate. Kate is our head of engineering here at Sleuth, and I'm excited to have her in. You're actually not that far away. You're just...
No, I am 2 hours up the hill usually, but that's a pretty decent barrier to showing up at the office.
In this remote world, why not? Especially with the snow outside. You don't...
I heard you talking about the temperature this morning. There was actually a temperature inversion. So I live up in the mountains, and it was actually 20 degrees warmer up there this morning than it was down here.
20 degrees?
Yeah, because it was -8 up here, and it was in the teens up there.
Because aren't you at like 8,000 feet or something?
9,000, yeah.
It's 20 degrees warmer?
Yeah.
Well,
I was on the phone with my partner this morning. He was talking about going to go exercise, and he was like, it's like 16 out here. And I was like, oh, well, that's just not fair.
Well, I guess when it's -9, there is certainly a lot of room for improvement on those temperatures.
Yes.
All right, anyways, going back to our main topic, we're here to talk about how you've used Sleuth. And so you're head of engineering. I'm really excited that you were able to come because that is a common persona, the people that we talk about. An engineering manager who comes in, adopts DORA metric, reads a book, gets excited, and then wants their team to use. So I thought I want to hear from you what value you found in DORA metrics and Sleuth in particular.
So I think if I like reflect on my career a bit, and like the thing that I think was missing was like, for me, engineering management's like this intersection of like trying to find business value. It's an intersection of the actual techie nerd bits, and then like the people and the processes and how that all fits together. And what I've always done, like you have a prediction about something that's going to make your team improve. Like, for example, yesterday we were talking about improving our developer on support rotation, and we're like, yes, this is a thing that's going to like protect the team from a lot of distractions. So if I was for example, if I were me and I introduced a developer on support rotation, what I would expect is these teams would be protected from context switching and be able to increase their deploy frequency. And so DORA metrics like gives me the thing where I can actually like take an experiment, try it, and then see how that's reflected in our data. Where in the past, what I do is like, I'm like, okay, how's team health? I'll send out a survey, and those things are absolutely still important. But it's all like the fuzzy bits verifying the fuzzy bits. And the thing that was always missing was the connection between hard data and the things that I was predicting were going to happen. So that's the interesting and fun bit for me. So I love looking at like the dashboards over time, how process is impacting what's happening, how team size is impacting what's happening, thinking about improving our onboarding process, for example, and then seeing those results reflected like in trends over time.
Right, so kind of like an engineering manager, you're saying that your job is to find the right combination of processes and people and groupings to make it all go well. And then DORA metrics gives you a way to measure if it did actually go well or not.
Yes.
Which is actually a very pertinent topic, because that's generally what an engineering manager does. But like for Sleuth ourselves, we just grew to the point where we have 3 teams now. And so all of a sudden with 3 teams and geo-distributed teams across continents, we're always trying to, hit some problems in communication and trying to create solutions. And you're saying that being able to then measure the delivery effect
Yes.
of those decisions is quite useful.
Correct. Yeah. So that's been like the biggest value for me.
So talk maybe a little bit more about what it was like before you had this. Because that's something I think that's important to think about when you're doing DORA metrics, is it's not just what is cool, but you need to think about what pain it's taking away from people. And think about this for yourself. It's really easy when you get a new technology, get super excited about, I'm going to put this cool new technology in, everything's going to be awesome. But what you forget is that technology is built to solve a problem. So you have to think about, what are you doing now that's taking time, that's very painful, that's very confusing, that's error prone, and how are you going to use a tool to solve it? So talk maybe just quickly, I know we don't have much of your time, but how was it before?
How was it before? It was a lot of remembering that a process was changed. Remembering to bring that up in every single one-on-one, ask people, or create a survey, send it out. Did I even create the thing correctly? Like, am I measuring the right thing to find out if the impact was there? And just like a lot of repetition, and like that has been taken away because now there's some numbers that are indicators about the effect of what we thought we were improving.
So it kind of almost sounds like a helps you sleep at night type thing, knowing that something's tracking it. It isn't just something happened. The other thing I find is when you have a lot of changes, you tend to be, sometimes at least I do, tend to be so focused on the change, and once it happens, I go focus on the next change, and I never go back and say, oh, was that actually a good idea? Yeah, exactly.
Did that do what I thought? Yeah. So it's already there. It's already like taking those measurements for me, and I can just
So I guess then if I took that information or that kind of your experience and tried to forward it to the audience who is saying, how do I get my team leads on board with DORA metrics? How do I show them that this isn't just another tax, another thing they have to do that they're not going to get value? This will actually make their jobs better and help them manage more effectively. Like, for example, in your case, you're actually, since we don't have, it's pretty flat organization structure, you're kind of running all these different teams right now. And so DORA metrics is a way to keep an eye on that, makes your job easier. I guess, I'm putting answers in your mouth, but I guess my question is, what would you say to someone who's like, I'm an engineering manager, I have multiple teams, how do I apply this?
I think what you said is correct, and I think I would add on to that and say, what you were putting on a detective hat earlier. Now you can put on a scientist hat instead, and make predictions about the things that are going to improve your team health or your team's ability to deliver, and see those results or not, and then learn from them real time.
Okay, very well put. And we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Kate, for joining. We have other folks, so go get, let's see, who do I have next on here? I think I have Devin. Go grab Devin.
All right, I'll be right back. Devin will be right back.
Yes. Come on, Devin, because this is all live. In reality, we would cut, we would then reset things up, we'd do a couple practice runs, check lights and makeup. We don't have makeup. We should get makeup. We shouldn't get makeup. Have you ever had makeup?
Me?
Yeah. No. Have you ever had anyone put on makeup on you for like a play or something?
No, I missed the makeup room.
Yeah, that's right. We actually do have a green room over there. I have a room that I have a bunch of green screens for kind of virtual set type stuff. So we actually do have a little green room, but we don't use it. You were not in the green room with the makeup doing the last minute. Anyways, back to the topic. The topic is how you have found use in DORA metrics. And I think you wanted to talk about, well, I'll just let you talk about it.
Sure. So I work as an individual contributor as a software engineer. And what I'm interested in are the bottlenecks on the team. What are those bottlenecks? Well, they're all on the change lead time metric of DORA. And so I'm really interested in what's my coding time, what's my review time, what's my review lag time. And I'm really interested in, what those are showing across the team as well. Particularly because I work with an asynchronous transatlantic team. My team members are, hours ahead or behind me. And so I'm curious about, okay, how long are we taking to review these pull requests, and are we getting good times in those? Are we getting feedback as quickly as we can?
Because I think there's some context here. I think that's a great answer. I think there's some context, which is you are very interested in the craftsmanship of software, of not just coding something to get to 9 to 5, get a job, but actually putting time and effort and having pride in what you produced. And kind of what you're saying seems to really align or be driven from that, which is you don't want to just get something done and get it out. Like you want to continuously improve, looking for ways to improve your reviews, improve your performance. And you're saying DORA Metrics has found a way to help you with that.
Absolutely, yeah. Just like the book Accelerate emphasizes continuous improvement.
Could you maybe say a little bit how, because we did earlier, we showed the work in progress dashboard, and I think that's kind of where this is coming from, is using that dashboard to kind of see breakdowns and things. Talk a little bit about how you use Sleuth specifically in this goal.
Certainly, so exactly like y'all saw there, there's a list of individual work in progress items, and I happen to work on the team that built this, so I'm particularly passionate about it.
A little bias there.
Yeah, a little biased, but we do use it. You know, we really do, and so we'll look at those individual items are usually where I spend my time. You know, I go on that page and I'm looking at, okay, it's a really convenient way to just see all of the items that are in progress and try to figure out, okay, who is, you know, where are they at and what's taking time, where are the bottlenecks? I mean, that's really what the answer is, just really quickly for us, is where are the bottlenecks on the team and how can we make sure that we're, you know, working together to be improving and giving each other feedback.
So that's interesting because that's actually going beyond DORA metrics. So DORA metrics is really just change lead time as a number. You measure that and you say, okay, we're doing pretty well. It's going beyond it and actually breaking that down into the bits. And you're saying the breakdown of the bits is where the real value lies for you.
Precisely. It breaks it down in coding time, review lag time, etc.
And we're also a geo-distributed team. So we have some of your team members are in Europe and some are here and some are different states. And so that is actually a big deal, the review and review lag time, for example.
Absolutely, yeah, it's very tricky, but that helps to think about that.
It solves it completely, right? You just buy Sleuth and that problem's solved.
It's all gone. No problem in the review lag time.
Yes, also we have some snake oil if you're interested, we can sell you. Talk to me, or actually really talk to the audience. So this is, picture that you're talking to a dev manager who is saying, how do I convince my developers to use it? Because many times people say DORA metrics might be just a tool for managers. It's really a dashboard for execs or VPs or managers to directors to see the status of things. And you're saying, no, there's value in the developer. What would you tell that dev manager who is trying to say, how do I pitch this to my devs?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. I think at the end of the day, you have to try to figure out what problems folks are trying to solve, and even the problems that they don't know that they're trying to solve, I think. And so in the case of developers, and in the case of individual contributors that are team oriented, that are, you know, trying to work as a collaborative team, I think one of the real problems they're trying to solve is their bottlenecks. And so I think that's where I focus on is thinking about what problems is this team trying to solve with its work, with its throughput, and it's collaboration, and focusing on that. I think that it's tough for sure because engineers, you know, sometimes they're more very afraid of metrics, you know, and misuse
as they
metrics.
should be. Yes.
But at the end of the day, I think metrics are just tools, and, you know, tools that can be extremely useful. So, you know, I'm biased because I always say just read Accelerate, because I think the data is there is very compelling. I think it's very, very, very compelling for me as an individual contributor. I was absolutely bought in at that point and said, okay, I want to have a better understanding of these metrics, and I want to know. I'm a weird engineer. I want to know my personal metrics as well. You know, so maybe I'm unique, but I love, you know, focusing on what are the problems that the engineers are trying to solve, and then saying, okay, these can help you solve them, especially these kinds of visuals.
Yeah, I like that bridge between what you get value out of and what you get value out as a member of a team trying to help the whole team, because that's one of the challenges, especially for distributed teams, is creating that sense of team identity and team progress and team goals. And DORA metrics are a useful tool in that. Sounds like you're saying.
Absolutely, and the other question you could ask, Don, is like, well, how do you solve these problems currently? You know.
Oh yes.
And if you look at, if you just kind of go to GitHub and you try to look at all your PRs and you try to, you know, maybe you have some filters by team or whatever, it still doesn't quite give you the beauty that I think we've created with the work in progress, where it lays it all out really nicely. Per team, you can go, you can see, okay, here's all the items that we have in progress, and here's where the bottlenecks may or may not be. Hey, here's a tool and some information that can help us figure out if there might be some things that we can improve.
Awesome, thanks. And you're from Utah, coming in from Utah. What's the temperature there?
You know,
Just going with the topic of the day.
I was looking at Twitter this morning. How the snow is up to people's shoulders or whatever. It's insane. There's crazy snow there. So I don't know what the temperatures are, but I did see some crazy pictures.
So we just have the cold, not much snow. You got a bunch of snow, probably not quite as cold.
It seems to be the case for Utah.
Nice. All right. Well, thanks, Evan, for coming by and send in our. Actually, Nick isn't around, right?
I don't think so.
Okay. So I will do Nick's. Let me switch over to the other mic. So we had another person coming in, which was Nick, who is going to talk about DORA metrics and small things. But he got so absorbed with the work that he was doing that he never made it into the office. He's still at his hotel room, which I kind of don't want to scold, because that's awesome that he's excited and getting things done. Because that's kind of the whole point of all this, right? Is to get people excited to deliver and make it easier for them to deliver. But I will go through his point for him. So what he wanted to talk about is how DORA metrics helps you break things down into small batches. And this is actually really fascinating, because if you go into the history of DORA metrics and where this all came from, one of them is to test the hypothesis that trunk-based development and sending small things out was beneficial. And so DORA metrics in some ways was actually measures that they found to understand this problem, and they found that strong correlation that when you do things in small batches, the deployment frequency, you tend to have smaller change lead times, and you also tend to have less failure rate, and you tend to have smaller mean time to recovery. So from his standpoint as a senior engineer, and we talked about all this yesterday, so I'm just giving you his answer. From his standpoint as a senior engineer, this takes something that he feels is important to do things in small batches and puts numbers behind it, so that when a team is starting to drift from it, starting to create large PRs, large bodies, big PRs that are really hard to review and hard to get through and very risky, by focusing on DORA metrics, you're encouraging the team not to be doing those things. And so that was kind of his thing. If your team is struggling with long PRs, struggling with PRs that it's hard to get anyone to actually respond to, struggling with risky changes so much that management is starting to say no deploys on Fridays, no deploys on any day but Tuesday, everyone has to be online when you deploy, things like that. Deploying things small, which DORA metrics encourages, is a great antidote to that situation. So something to think about if you're out there and you're in that situation where you're hitting some of these problems. DORA metrics can provide value, and so when you're talking to your team, you can say, hey team, I know you want to do things in smaller ways. Here's a way that we can actually measure and track and then make improvements to and see the effect of those changes through DORA metrics. All right, we have one more guest who I'm really excited to join. This is our newest person at our company, which is Rebecca, who is also, oh, hold on. Did I switch over? I didn't switch over. Now I did. Okay, we're on the new mics. Gotta make sure I get that damn thing out of the way. On the new mic. So Rebecca is here from just next door, practically, in Boulder, where it is probably about the same temperature. There's really nowhere else to go on that one other than it's cold.
It's really cold.
It's cold. But Rebecca's unique in that Rebecca loves the cold so much. You like to go up in the mountains like almost every day and like hike up them on skis and crazy things like that.
I do like to adventure on my skis, and so I secretly like this cold weather and ample amounts of snow.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you just recently joined us as the head of customer success. And so for those who don't know what customer success is, she talks to a lot of our customers, particularly our larger customers, to see what's working as they adopt Sleuth. So these are people who have already bought Sleuth who want to spread it to an organization, and some are successful in spreading it across, some are needing some help. And so you have an interesting perspective of talking to lots of different ones, because everyone we've talked to so far has been from Sleuth, one team. But you're kind of the voice of multiple different teams. And so I wanted to bring you in to hear what you have found as you're talking and helping to these teams. What have you found to be a useful way to spread the use of DORA metrics in larger organizations?
Absolutely. So since I joined just a couple of months ago, one of the constant themes I'm hearing is how do our teams do more with less? And a lot of our customers, they've downsized and really experienced layoffs. One in particular, they are a commercial appraisal firm and they lost their entire QA team. So really the way they're using DORA metrics is how do we let's use these to get our people back on track and be able to increase deployment frequency while not losing the quality of their software, because as you can imagine, they have taken on some very challenging projects that could really create a lot of instability. So by looking at their DORA metrics, then they can see what are those items that are really big and how can they break those up, and really be able to do that before they deploy and spread out that work. So that's one big example. We have another customer that is a fintech company, and they're using DORA metrics to really see how their current progress is coming along, being able to see what's at risk and drive those improvements that way, really empowering those teams to be able to dive in on their own. And they can come to the sprints and talk about, hey, this is what I'm seeing, and this is where I can see the impact of my changes really, really quickly rather than waiting a couple of weeks.
Right. Okay. So it's not so much in that case that the data wasn't really there before. It's just it's making it easily accessible so they don't have to go digging or rely on that one person that knows it or someone's intuition that something's wrong. They can actually have numbers to actually point at and say, yep, this is a problem. This is not. We have real data behind it.
Exactly. And really allowing them to be so much more proactive and lean in on their own.
And that's kind of a common thing that I'm hearing is that kind of leaning on your own. I think as you talk about people downsizing and talking about people struggling with losing people, I mean, losing your entire QA department, holy crap. I mean, talk about a move that might make sense in the short term, but feels like that's going to be painful in the long term. And now you're thinking, how am I going to keep doing the same level of quality, same without anyone testing it? Having something that's tracking not just the speed of what you're going, but the quality is important. And that's something that people don't talk about in DORA metrics often. They always focus on the speed and they forget the quality part.
And then I would also add one other in morale, because they're also dealing with survivor's guilt and taking on much more work. So how do we continue to stay on track and not get derailed?
Right, and so DORA metrics, well, I was going to say Sleuth, but I guess DORA metrics, if I as Sleuth, because of course that's the best way to track your DORA metrics, gives you that kind of overview at a high level, gives you an overview of what's happening at the smaller level so that you can track it per team, you can track it across the org, or just the team themselves can look at their individual changes.
Exactly, yeah.
So what advice would you give to a dev manager out there who is excited about Accelerate, they've read the book, they've seen the things, they know that these metrics are useful, maybe they're getting some value out of them by tracking, but they want their devs to get involved, they want other teams, how do they tell their other dev managers? What would be a piece of advice you'd give them?
That would be, really, what are those tools? Of course, DORA metrics, and how can you empower that person individually to be able to get excited, to be able to improve their efficiency while not being told what to do. And so the ability for them to go in on their own and be able to come to those reviews, those sprints, and be able to add to that discussion rather than, coming from a top down, I think really, from what I've heard, has really made a lot of excitement in an organization, which has had some turmoil.
I think the morale is a particularly poignant one right now, as you mentioned, with the layoffs and the struggles that are people going with. Yeah, there's no fun going to a retro knowing that you're just about to get hammered for a bunch of stuff that you didn't even know what's happening. But if you have a DORA metrics dashboard that is looking at all the work that's happening and all the past work, the current work, and everyone's looking at the same thing, then there's no surprises. There's no gotchas. People are able to have the same information and be able to go beyond the just, we have a problem and who's to blame, but go to that next level and start talking about improving.
And that dev can talk to their EM and say, this is what I'm seeing. These are the changes I've made. This is what's working. And, what didn't impact. So.
Right. So the dev goes beyond just taking tasks, but actually starts pushing improvements up.
Exactly.
Which is fun for a dev because you have more control over things, but it's especially secretly fun for a manager because now you don't have to do that. It's no fun to nag people. It's no fun to go, get people in trouble. It's so much better when people are doing that for themselves.
Exactly, and with that efficiency, they can then work on other things that are really exciting to them.
Awesome.
So. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Rebecca. Thanks for coming down from your mountains and spending some time with us.
Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
Thanks. All right, so I'm going to give you one more. Thank you, by the way, to all of my guests who came on. And I know that it's not exactly something that people look forward to do, being on camera and especially doing it live. But thank you, everyone, for coming. I wanted to add one more point to this, and that is the improvement part. We've heard a lot about how metrics can give you information to go make improvements. I think there's another dimension to this whole problem, which is once you have the data and have a system that tracks the data, you can actually start making improvements because you have a system that accesses everything. So like you've given an example of in a sleuth case, we probably, if you ask the developer, what is the #1 value you get every day? It's not even so much these dashboards, which are useful in the visibility and that kind of thing, but it's really the automations that we built on top of it. For example, in Sleuth, we've built the ability, since Sleuth is already connected to your issue system, your deployment tracker, your issue system, your source control, your CI/CD system, it's already connected to all these things. We were able to implement an automation where when a deployment goes out to staging, it sends a message to Slack, and people are able to click approve and reject, and if it gets approved, then it automatically gets promoted to production. And that was something that we were able to have because Sleuth already has access to those key systems. So if you're thinking about metrics as just something to look at and then go do something else on, think again, because I would argue, any decent DORA tracker wants to go beyond just giving you data and wants to go into helping you improve that data. So Sleuth has a number of things. As I mentioned, we have a Sleuth Actions framework. We have a number of other features that helps you actually improve your metrics. Whatever tool you're using, think about not just getting a number, but think about what steps you're going to change, because as Kate was saying earlier, DORA metrics can be a great way to then evaluate that change and see if that change actually did something. Let's say you put in a new incident management process or a new continuous deployment process. Did that change your deployment frequency? Did it change your change failure rate? That one's an interesting one, right? We're so focused on going fast, we forget that quality aspect. So think about, I guess what I would recommend to you and what we've seen a lot of value in our company is to going beyond just getting visibility to things, but now taking that next step and using that same tool to make improvements as well. But when I think about kind of the value that DORA gives to me, I think I kind of alluded to my closing thoughts, but I'll point them out here again, which is this idea that sometimes when you find a new technology, you get really excited about it, but you kind of forget that tools are meant to solve a problem. And so just because you're excited, you think, well, I'm going to make everyone else excited. But what you forget is that middle bit. And the middle bit is, what problems are they having today that this tool will help solve? So if you're ultimately thinking, how do I spread DORA metrics to the rest of the organization? I think you need to take a hard look and listen. Actually, not even look. You need to listen to your dev managers, listen to your other teams to hear what challenges they are having. And if those challenges are around visibility, if those challenges are around deployment speed and improvement, if they're around quality, perhaps DORA metrics might be a great way to help start solving that. It's not going to completely solve it. As you probably know, almost every problem, I'd say probably every problem is not a technical problem, it's a people and culture problem, but it can be a tool to help that. So when you're thinking about sharing DORA metrics, it's not so much, hey, here's a cool hammer. No, think about all the nails that those teams have that they need to be putting into the wood, of which this hammer will help them do that. So I guess that's my kind of message there is, don't just think I adopt a tool and everything's solved. Be thinking a little bit before that, which is what problems do we have, so that you can evaluate whether this tool is a good fit. And hopefully it is. We've found it, certainly in our company, it's been a good fit. You've heard from developers, you've heard from customer success, you've heard from engineering managers, you heard from me, CTO, of how we have got value out of DORA metrics because we looked at the problems we're having and used this tool. So think about your problems, and then maybe DORA metrics and Sleuth is a good tool for you. Well, that's not just the end of the show, because we have a show coming up next month. So this month, the next month's show, we're going to adapt kind of a similar approach. We're going to have an introduction of things. We're going to talk about some of the cool new things that we've shipped in Sleuth just because we're excited about what we do here, and so we want to share it. And then we'll have a part afterwards where we talk about a topic. And the topic for next week is how to do more with less. Because as Rebecca pointed out, we hear this again and again, teams going through downsizing, departments being eliminated, and they're asked to have the same output, but now with fewer resources. And how can Sleuth and DORA metrics help in that situation? If you're interested or have any comments or thoughts or suggestions on that, then you will have to tune in to next month's show. Until then, see you later.